Hey everyone, today I'm going to be making a quench tank for my forge. I need a really tall quench tank so I can quench long pieces of metal. I've got these two pieces of cedar I'm going to use. Oak would work well, or larch, just some kind of wood that will stand up to year-round contact with water, and then I'll use some stainless steel banding to hold the whole thing together. The tank's going to be about 33.5 inches tall, or 850 mil, and outer diameter will be about 12 inches or 300 mil. These are 12 foot or 3.6 meter boards, and they're about 8 inches wide, 200 mil. First thing I'll do is get these milled down to about 3/4 of an inch thick, or 19 mil, and then I can go ahead and cut out the bottom, get it glued up so that it's easy to cut out later. Go ahead and cut out the staves, put a bead and cove in them, and then put the whole thing together. So let's get going. Next, I'll go through and mark out where I'll be cutting the staves out. So here I'm just looking for 33.5 inch or 850 mil sections that are the cleanest that I can possibly get. So it's not free, without checking, without splits and cracks. And I'll just pick the best 7 sections I can. And then I'll do 2 sections just over a foot or 300 mil for the bottom. So now I've got everything marked out. I'll take it to the chop saw and just cut these sections out. Now that I've got these main pieces cut down, first thing I'll do is get the bottom glued together so the glue can start setting. So I'll plane or joint one side of each board, put a tongue and groove in them, and get them glued together. So got the tongue in the groove, and now that they fit well together, I can glue them up and let that get setting. Now I can start working on the staves. So I'll joint one side of each board and then take them over to the table saw. Now that I've got one good planed edge on each board, I can bring them over to the table saw with a sled. I've got a dado blade on here set at 3/4 of an inch. I've got a stop block here, 3/4 of an inch off the dado blade. First thing I'll do is put the planed edge on the sled and just buzz off a 1/16 of an inch just to make sure I've got 2 nice perpendicular sides. Then I'll go up against the stop block, lower the blade down to 3/8 of an inch, 9.5 mil, something like that, and put a housing or a dado through here, and that is where I can set the floor in after I cut the staves. Now I'll just drop the blade down to 3/8. Do a quick test cut. Okay, happy with that. So now, just bring the stack back here, and I can throw this on here and just cut my dados or housings. Now I've got the table saw set up to take 1.5 inch cuts, about 38 mil. I can get 5 staves out of each board, so I'll just go ahead and rip these down. Next, I'll put the staves through a router. One side will get a full bullnose and the other side will get a full cove or a box cove. These are just matching 3/4 bits. So I'll go ahead and run all the staves through that now. Before I start routing the staves, if you're still with us, I just want to mention likes and subscribes really help the channel and we'd appreciate it. Thanks a lot. All right, back to work. Now that they've all been shaped, I'll use a chop saw and a stop block to just cut them to the final length. I also laid out a piece of dowel that is specifically sized to fit right in that channel well. So I can take a piece of sandpaper, wrap it around that, and sand right inside it to get a perfect smooth edge. I'll get the outside. And then I'll just touch up the dado. All right, 34 more. The staves are all finished being prepped now, so it's time to get back to the bottom. This has had time to set up, so I'll just pull it out of the clamps and set them aside. I want the outer diameter of the tank to be about 300 mil or 12 inches wide. So the base of it needs to be about 11 and a quarter or 280 mil. So I'll go ahead and measure out to find center for 11 and a quarter. Center punch that, and I'll need a bigger compass to make this circle. So this is about 280 or 11 and a quarter, and I'll go ahead and cut this out on the bandsaw now. Now I'll give this a quick sand. And then I'll just hand sand the edges to take off any tear out. Now that all the pieces are ready, I'll start assembling it. There can be a little trial and error in this because the last stave might be just a little too big or a little too small, and you'll either need to alter the size of that last stave or of the bottom itself. But to start, I'll just put one on, and from there I'll put the next one on, but have it go straight. I'm not following the curve yet. So I'm tucking the two staves in tightly together, and then I'll push it down to start following the curve. And again, just follow that all the way around. Tuck the stave in nice and tight to the previous stave, and then into the curve following the base. Once I have a few on, I'll go ahead and turn it upside down. The staves really need to be very tight up against each other. The bottom is going to swell, so it's really going to fill out the dado, and that should be really easy to make watertight. So as you get down to the last few, I find it easier to go ahead and put it up on its base. And then the last two, I'll line them up together. Tuck them in. So with them all in place now, I'll grab a ratchet strap and just a piece of cardboard. I'll fold that in half because that is going to protect the cedar from the ratchet strap. First, I'll get it all in place with ratchet straps, test the fit, test the waterproofness. When that has all passed and it's ready to go, then I'll band it up with stainless steel. Here's where I stick the cardboard in here to protect it from the ratchet strap. Now that it's held in place, I can go around and straighten out any staves that aren't quite locked in a circular pattern. So if they're sticking out a bit. And I've got a little gap in this stave, so I'll need to sort of work them around to close that gap. Okay. I'll go ahead and get another strap here in the middle. Tuck the cardboard in and clamp it up. All right, it's pretty sturdy. I'll go through and double check that all the seams look good, and then I'll go throw some water in it. It'll probably leak at first, but as I keep topping it up, the wood will swell, close off any gaps, and then it should be able to stay full pretty quickly. To do the test, I've put it up on some bricks so that I can see any dripping coming out of the bottom if there's any there. I'll try really hard to keep the outside splash free, that way I can identify leaks really easily. So I'll just go ahead, turn the hose on, and sit back and watch. While I'm waiting for this to fill up, I'll just share a couple tips. It's best to do this with really dry wood. That way it can take on a lot of moisture and swell to fill up any voids. Another thing that can help is trying to avoid having knots right on the seams, because they won't swell the same way that the long grain will swell. You can have knots in the center of each stave, but wood permitting, try not to have them right on the edges. So now I'm just gonna stand back and let this fill. It's just about full now. I haven't seen any leaks yet, which is a good sign, but what I'll actually do is fill it right to the top, let the wood soak up water, and I'll be able to actually watch the level go down, and that will either indicate leaks or just the wood soaking. So it'll actually be quite a long test, at least half a day. I'll just leave it out here. So it's full to the brim now. What I'll do is I'll just leave it out here and just track if the water starts to drop. If it does drop, I'll probably check it every hour or so and put a little mark on the inside to track the water level dropping. Hopefully most of that is just water absorbing into this, but if there are any leaks, then you'll also be tracking that. And the leaks should stop once the wood has had enough time to swell up and fill any gaps. Once I'm happy that this won't have any permanent leaks, I'll empty out the water, take it back to the shop, and put on the permanent stainless steel banding. So back in the shop now, and I'm gonna call this good enough to put the banding on. After about 2 hours, I checked it, and there was just a little bit of water loss, maybe 3-4 mil, a bit more than 1/8 of an inch. And then I checked it again after 2 more hours, and there was no noticeable loss at all. So I think that was just the wood accepting some of the water. It would have swollen up, sealed off anything, and there were no continuous leaks. So I'll throw the banding on now. It's important to use stainless steel on certain woods, including cedar, because it will corrode any standard mild steel. So I have the stainless steel strapping, these little clamps, and there's a tool to put it all together. And I'll just start with 2 here in the middle. There you go, so that's one band, nice and tight. I'll put one on here, and then I'll just start replacing each ratchet strap with a belt of its own. So I'm just listening and feeling to see how tight it is. And then just seal it off. This bottom band I'll line up right on top of the bottom on the inside, so it's really squeezing in on all sides around that bottom. All right, there it is, all banded up. These are pretty cool little tools. I won't go into how to use them because depending on which one you have, it might be slightly different, but each manufacturer should have some videos and instructions. But it is really nice to be able to put bands on things and tighten them down really tightly. So here it is, set up by the forge, leak free and ready to go. And now I can quench really long pieces of metal. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.